Moving our attention to the Printers pane, here you'll see listed each of the printers currently connected to the selected server. If you click on the plus sign in the printer's header bar, you can add additional printers to your Fiery server. For details, refer to the e-learning course System 103, Fiery Pro Server and Fiery XF Command Workstation Initial Setup. If you select a printer from the list, you can click on the trash icon in the printer's header bar to remove it from your server. Clicking on the plus sign to the left of the printer name will expand a drop-down list to show you a list of media and workflows. By default, whenever you add a new printer, your system will automatically add one media and one workflow, each named generic. Selecting a media or a workflow will present options in the Property Inspector where you can customize your settings. You can also click on the plus signs to create additional media and workflow options that can be assigned to individual jobs. Select a printer, right-click on it, and choose the Rename option, or after clicking on the header bar, in the Property Inspector, you can change the name of the printer as it will appear in Command Workstation. In the Property Inspector, you can also change the method of connection or the printer IP address. You can use the Connect button to ensure that the selected Fiery server can communicate with the selected printer if you are connected to the printer using IP or USB connectivity. You cannot change the manufacturer or the printer type once the printer has been added. If either of these are incorrect, you will need to remove this printer and add in a new one using the correct manufacturer and printer type. Double-clicking on the header bar of the printer or clicking on the plus sign to the left of the printer name will expand the printer options to display the available media and workflow. By default, you will see displayed a generic media preset and a generic workflow preset. After selecting the generic media listing, on the Media tab, if needed, expand the Media Configuration panel. I'll click on the Ink Type drop-down menu and select Any in order to show all of the available calibration options under the Resulting Calibrations drop-down menu. If this list is empty, you will need to download appropriate media profiles using the Fiery Profile Updater option in the Fiery Server Manager, or use the Color Tools program to build your own custom calibration files and ICC media profiles, a process covered in other e-learning courses. Notice that there are numerous calibration options available. I'll select the 1000 by 720 resolution, and now there are only 5 calibration options available. And if I select the normal and light ink option on the color mode drop-down menu, you will see that now there are only 3 calibration options available. Each of the drop-down menu items acts as a filter for other available options. For the moment, with these options selected, I'll highlight the Media ID generic name and change the name to Styrene and click Save. Under the Media Settings section, you can select the media source and the media size. Under the Media Correction section, you can enter a media feed adjustment value used for printers that are directly driven from your Fiery server. And under the Special Settings section, you can select options specific for the printer you are working with. Options include settings for the use of white ink, the printing of control bars, and working with printers that have integrated die cutting systems. Again, a complete explanation of all of these options will be covered in Fiery XF7 Expert Learning courses. Let's assume that you are a printer operator and need a new media listing for a substrate from your inventory. Begin by clicking on the plus sign to add media settings for this new media. I'll name this media Backlit and click Save. With the normal only inks option selected under color mode, I have only one resulting calibration available. Again, notice that changing one available option will automatically filter other options. After clicking Save, I'll right-click on this new entry and select the option to duplicate it. With the duplicate entry selected, I'll select the EFI LX Pro XA ink type, select the normal and light inks option under the color mode, and select one of the resulting calibration files. After clicking Save, I'll right-click on this entry, select the option to rename, and name it Vinyl. What I've now done is associate calibration files and media ICC profiles with easily understandable media names. Right-click on any of the available media, and you will be able to set it as the default media used for any job imported for this printer. You could also choose to delete any media that you no longer need. In addition to having media presets associated with printers, you will also need to configure at least one workflow. I'll select the generic workflow option, and the Property Inspector will change to reflect options available for a workflow preset. We'll explore several of the available options in this module. Additional details will be found in additional e-learning courses. Under the Basic Information section of the File tab, you can enter a name for the workflow. I'll change the name of the workflow from generic to production. If you wish, you can enter a description to help your other operators understand how you have configured your workflows. In the next section, you can define when you want your server to automatically delete job files. Source files, the files that are spooled into your server, can be handled separately from the processed preview and output files. You can select the option to never delete the files, in which case you will need to manually delete your jobs, automatically after they have been printed, which occurs within an hour after the job is printed, or after a specified number of days. In addition, you can have your server delete jobs that are being placed in a hot folder that is being monitored by this workflow. Farther down on the File tab are settings for options to set up a hot folder, create a virtual printer, and define how your workflow processes PostScript, EPS, and PDF files. On the Layout tab, you will find options to set up defaults for image scaling and alignment, rules for automatic nesting, step and repeat, and tiling jobs, as well as for adding a job label or footer to each of your jobs. Some of these panels have a checkbox which you must select to make the settings available. The Finishing tab provides you with options to set up crop marks, cut marks, or grommet marks. The Color tab gives you the capability to globally adjust the color balance, brightness, contrast, or saturation of a job, set up your source or reference ICC profiles, as well as select a custom spot color library and specify how spot colors are to be handled when they are processed and printed. On the Printer tab, you can define the number of copies of each job that you want to print by default, as well as select which media that you have set up for this printer that you would like to use by default for any jobs processed through this workflow. Finally, on the Verify tab, you can select one or two control bars to print on each job, and if you have the Verify option, which criteria you would like to use when verifying jobs. If you click on the plus sign in the header row titled Workflow, you can create additional workflows. From the pop-up window, you can choose to create either a production, proof, photo, or a custom workflow. Each of these selections will provide you with a set of templates to choose from, which predefine a number of the workflow options. I'll select the production and the production speed options and click Load. With the new workflow selected, you could select and modify any of the settings defined in the template. For now, I will accept all of the default settings. Notice that the name of the workflow reflects the name of the workflow type and template that were selected. Right-click on a workflow, and one of the options available for selection is Duplicate. With the production workflow duplicated and selected, on the Finishing tab, I'll turn on the Marks option by clicking on the checkbox, and with the Cut Marks option selected, I'll select a Graphtec cutter. I'll save the changes, right-click on the new workflow, select Rename, and name this workflow Graphtec Cutter, and save the changes. You now have a number of workflows, each with different characteristics associated with easily understandable workflow names. Right-click on any of the available workflows, and you will be able to set it as the default workflow used for any job imported for the printer. You could also choose to delete any workflows that you no longer need. Additional details on how to use the media and workflow selection will be found in the e-learning course Fiery XF 7.0 System 104 Basic Job Processing. This completes this module.